It is week 11 of the NFL. We have college football again with plenty of closures. The NBA draft is happening live as we are recording this episode 94 of The Next Best Bet. I'm Jake Higgins with Brett Levy as always. Now, before we get into hindsight with Higgins, Brett, how are you enjoying the draft so far?
It's been a lot of fun. We saw Anthony Edwards go number one overall. A few of my bets hit. A few of your bets hit, Higgins.
Yes, all of my bets were expected to happen within the top 10 or so. So I'm in the clear. I went 3 and 0 on my NBA draft bets. I have one college football pick out, but I have at least 5 wins so far right now. You have a lot more still left in play, but I think your Levy lock of a Western Michigan's good. So I'm going to count that good right now, even though that game's still going live as we're recording this.
Oh, thank you. I'll take it. All right. Can the sports books pay me too? Higgins counted it.
Well, you have your other two still out to play, so we'll see how those go. We'll update as we progress through this. Let's get into Beginners Boulevard, though, and talk about the handle, which is the amount of money a sports book or sports books take from wagers. So it's how much money is on a certain site, and this could be by region, country, or just a specific private company.
Yeah. And it's just when someone refers to the handle on a game or something like that, it's referring to how much the casino takes in. So just good to note. And always something to consider. You and I talk about exposure all the time, and the handle is how you basically determine exposure.
Absolutely, it is. Now, like I said, the NBA draft is going on live right now. We also have our Maction going on live right now, but there's also a stock full lineup of some great college football this weekend, Brett, even though, once again, we have a lot of COVID closures.
Yeah, we have a ton of games canceled due to COVID. I think 11 total this weekend, Higgins. And we actually saw the Miami Hurricanes move around 3 weeks worth of games. So it's going to get tricky down the home stretch here. And, certain things like the Heisman race are going to be affected by this. But I'm not sure if you've seen the line movement lately on Kyle Trask, but him and the Florida Gators have been on a roll. Florida's actually minus 31 this weekend, 31 and a half this weekend, excuse me, versus Vanderbilt. And if Kyle Trask plays well and gets it done again this weekend, the more games he gets in under his belt, Higgins, probably the more likely it is he wins that Heisman.
Well, there is another name he is going to have to worry for, even though he was out briefly with COVID, is Trevor Lawrence, which is part of why Clemson's minus 80,000 on the money line, Brett. They're up 5 touchdowns on the spread at minus 35.5, but minus 80,000 on the money line. Typically, you see games top out at about minus 10,000, so that's some extra coverage for Clemson there.
Who's betting that? $80,000 to win a dollar?
Bold move, Cotton.
Bold move.
Well, let's get into what our picks actually are. Another great game should be this Indiana Ohio State game. The Buckeyes should run over the Hoosiers here, but who knows? Indiana's played superbly. They're a top 10 team that's being a dog by 20 and a half points. So maybe some value there. I'm not going to be on the spread, though. You're going to find me on the over-under because I think that Ohio State's still going to win. I think they'll probably still cover, but I expect Indiana to still get a few touchdowns in, so that's why I'm taking over 66.5 because I could see this being a 40-something to 20-something type game.
Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel on this one, which is why I'm staying away. I think the over is a fun way to play it, but in the Big Ten, could be a bad weather game, could be just a tough defensive run the football game. Big Ten football is kind of tricky for me to bet overs, but uh, I think the Indiana and OSU offenses have proven that they can put up points.
Yeah, the weather could be iffy. Right now it says it's going to be in the 50s and cloudy, but that could change very easily in Ohio at any given moment. So who's to say what that's going to be like when we are still days out from this? Brett, you're going to be in another interesting weather scenario for one of your picks, though.
Yeah, so I've been kind of joking that Northwestern's the best team in the Big Ten, but I've only kind of been joking. And laying 7.5 points, although I actually found a line where they were 8.5. So when I saw you put 7.5 in the rundown and I went to my sports book and I saw 8.5, I was like, well, I guess I should take that.
Absolutely,
So I took
absolutely.
it at 8.5. So I have Northwestern at plus 8.5. And to be quite frank, Higgins, I just think that's too many points for Northwestern to be laying at home. I mentioned it. It's tough to go into Evanston and play at 11 a.m. You mentioned the same thing when teams struggle playing at Nebraska at 11 a.m. It's just different. And I think that's a home field advantage that's kind of unaccounted for.
Yeah, you literally did mention it a couple episodes ago when it was the Nebraska Northwestern game. No one gets up for Evanston.
Yeah, I mean, I just think Northwestern's going to be very up for this football game, Higgins. And, I think anytime Wisconsin comes to town, Northwestern gets motivated, but Wisconsin, they're probably waiting for their moment to play Ohio State. But unfortunately, this week, that's Indiana's chance.
I think it'll be an interesting game. I mean, like I said, Indiana still is a top 10 team, plus 700 though on the money line compared to plus 20 and a half on the spread. I find those scenarios kind of interesting. I don't think that's quite reflective or fair of each other. I think you would expect more value on the money line from someone that you're seeing at 3 touchdowns down. So there could be a chance Indiana pulls this off.
I mean, Indiana's been great this season. I think what worries me when I think back on Indiana is we thought very highly of them because of their win again, and it was a questionable win, but their win against Penn State, right? Like
Yeah,
everyone was like, "Wow, what a win!" But it turns out Penn State's eh. So, like that's what kind of worries me about Indiana is maybe there's a little bit of this false like they're really good, but I'm not knocking them at all. They're an undefeated team. They're playing a Big Ten schedule, and they're going out there and beating everyone that's in front of them up until this point. So they absolutely have a shot in this game.
absolutely. Let's hop back away from that game though and go into a different conference. We talked about Wisconsin Northwestern in the Big Ten. We talked about Indiana Ohio State in the Big Ten. Cincinnati UCF, excuse me. I've picked Cincinnati basically every past weekend, and you know why? It's because they keep winning. They're 7-0. They're 5-2 against the spread. They are won 4 straight against the spread, and they're minus 5.5 here against a 5-2 UCF team. Cincinnati's gonna win. They're gonna win by a touchdown again, and I'm gonna keep riding this horse because Cincinnati Bearcats keep proving it's wise to do so.
Okay, well, I mean, no reason to bite the hand that feeds you, right?
Well, and then if you want another stat, UCF is 2-5 against the spread, even though they're a 5-2 team on their record.
Yeah, no, that is so those teams are polar opposites against the spread. One team's more like the New York Giants and the other one's probably a little more like the New York Jets.
Absolutely, absolutely they are. Now, another one of my picks, though, is from a team that really surprised me last week, Virginia Tech. I said that Miami was going to smoke them out. I said that that was insult that they were a underdog in that game. Virginia Tech proved me wrong, and while Pittsburgh is a hard place to necessarily go and play, Virginia Tech at -3, I'm going to take them on the road here and see if this ACC Hokie team is going to really do the job.
Yeah, I mean, Pittsburgh started off the season playing better than they are currently, but I think Virginia Tech probably impressed a lot of people last week. They played that Miami team very tough. So I don't really have a feel on this one. I'm going to stay away, but, good luck, Higgins. Vatek -3. That's all you, baby.
Hey, it's an ACC game. We'll see how it is. The over-under's at 55, so they think there'll be a little bit of scoring here. Who knows, though? Pittsburgh's always a interesting place to go play.
Got you. Well, I'm on two smaller games in the Mountain West, Higgins. I'm on the super late night game. Everyone's favorite, the Hawaii 11 p.m. kickoff. So you know you have to be on the over in that one. Boise State travels to Hawaii for Hawaii's first home game of the year. 11 p.m. kickoff, Higgins. Nothing better than the late night kick. 57.5 in that one. For the record, Boise State's 14.5 point favorites. I'd kind of lean Hawaii on that one. It's always tough to travel to the island and play that game, but I'm just going to stay on the over here.
It's hard to stay focused when you travel all the way out to Hawaii, especially Idaho, going from Boise to Hawaii. That's a nice little break in terms of the weather break that you're going to be getting. Hard to focus on a football game that you have to go and play, especially with everything that's going on right now when there's travel restrictions and coronavirus and everything. That is probably a welcome escape to Hawaii for those players with Boise State. We'll see how they perform once they get to the islands, though. You're right. Over 57.5, I'll be up late enough to watch that for you over here in Oregon. I'll tell you that, though, Brett.
Yeah, thanks. I'll be up for kickoff. It's just the second half is when it gets so tough. But
I get
at kickoff, you're so excited. You're like, all right, we got one game left. I need to be on the over. There's no other bet. That's the bet. The over is the bet in that one. And then I'm also on probably the hottest team in college football, Higgins, the 4-0 San Jose State Spartans. They travel to Fresno State. You might be familiar with San Jose State's starting quarterback, Nick Starkel. He spent a few years in the SEC. Now he's at San Jose State. Team looks good. I expect them to cover against Fresno State. Fresno State's 3-1. They're no slouch, but San Jose State just looked really good and they put up good numbers offensively. Just so you have an idea, Higgins, San Jose State's leading receiver is put up 432 receiving yards on the season. Fresno State's 279 receiving yards. So this is an offense that can move the ball.
Well, Brett, to be honest, I don't really know much about either of these two teams, but from what you're saying, sounds like it could be a high-scoring game. 60.5 at the over-under sounds interesting for a late-night match. Maybe I'll find myself on that and the Hawaii game, depending on how I do on my Saturday matches. But I still do have one other bet on one last game to go, and that's the Oklahoma State versus Oklahoma game, Brett.
Bedlam.
Now you would think that this is a rivalry game. I mean, it's the states. It's the two state schools. They've played for over 100 years against each other. But Brett, doesn't there need to be a level of competition for this to be a rivalry? Because the Sooners are up 89-18. I had to look down to make sure I got the number right. 89-18 against the Oklahoma State Cowboys. I mean, so -7 at home. I'm going to take it. I think the Sooners are going to cover.
I think that's pretty fair. But don't disrespect the Bedlam game. There's always madness in Bedlam. So,
The games are good, yes, but is it a rivalry? If
yeah,
it's so one-sided.
I mean, it's what I guess they're the little brother, right? Like it's
Yes,
big brother, little, but that doesn't mean there's not a little sibling rivalry.
absolutely, absolutely. You're right. You're right. I'll give it the respect it deserves. This 59 over/under seems low. I mean, Big 12 history, the way these two teams have typically played each other, it is a shootout. I mean, you just look at the way the last few games have ended: 34-16, 48-47, 62-52, 38-20. Most of those hit that over/under in a sense. So,
Yeah,
might be a second way to go on that game.
something to watch for sure. I don't know. I think I'll be watching other football games, but to be honest with you, the more I think about it, there's probably not going to be too many better games. So I'm sure I will have my eyes on it. And I'm sure I'll find my way on some sort of action, but staying away from right now, I like your OU -7 because I'm sure if it was up to most of the players on Oklahoma State, they'd be playing for Oklahoma or Texas.
And there's one last game that I do want to talk about. We listed a lot in our rundown before we made our picks, Brett. The Illinois-Nebraska game. Now, I'm not going to bet against the Huskers yet, but plus 15 seems pretty large for a team that just found their quarterback again, potentially. I mean, Luke McCaffrey's very good, but you got to prove a little bit more to me than that before you're a two-score favorite, even if it is at home. That felt a little big to me.
It does feel big. Penn State was in the red zone with 30 seconds left. They didn't get it done. Nebraska walked away with a one possession victory. I mean, Nebraska was probably the better team start to finish in that game, but you can't say it wasn't close.
This could be an example of some exposure, even though these are from New Jersey numbers. I know Nebraska does move Iowa sports books. They're loyal
That's fair.
fans.
Yeah, no,
They are
that's
loyal
fair.
fans.
They'll drive.
Yes, they will drive. But typically right now, Brett, we would be getting into our money line magic, but we don't really have a game to talk about. I mean, the Monday night game, the Vikings handled that pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, they're really the action games. We had one kid run for 300 yards and four touchdowns. In the other game, we had another person 17 for 17 with 300 yards at the half, Higgins. So I would say those were won pretty handedly, but no money line magic for us. But we do have our ad.
We do have our ad. This episode is presented by Wild CBD. Wild produces the best tasting edibles on the market using real fruit and all natural flavoring. With flavors inspired by the Pacific Northwest, high quality ingredients, real fruit, and consistent dosing, Wild has become one of the leading cannabis edible producers in the country. Wild's new CBD line currently offers real fruit infused gummies in blackberry, huckleberry, lemon, and raspberry, and CBD infused sparkling water in raspberry, lemon, blackberry, and blood orange. Each gummy is dosed with 25 milligrams of CBD and can be purchased in a bottle of 10 or 20. Wild CBD is offering our listeners 30% off their next purchase from wildcbd.com by using the code POD. That's code POD for 30% off your next purchase. Wild CBD products are intended only for use by individuals aged 18 and older. Wild CBD products should not only be consumed as directed on the label and should not be used if you are pregnant or breastfeeding. All Wild CBD products are made with ingredients containing 0% THC. Consult with a health professional prior to using Wild CBD in combination with any medications or other dietary supplements. Now, Brett, into the NFL with finally a fantastic Thursday night games starting us off. I mean, Thursday night games aren't always the best games, but we have a really good one this week.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like a lot is on the line. NFC West title, MVP between Kyler Murray and Russell Wilson could be on the line. Just a lot of fun. I think it's going to be high scoring. I actually just made a pick live, Higgins,
I
while you were
saw that.
doing
I
the ad
saw that.
read. I know I might have thrown you off on the ad read. I'm sorry. I was making a pick. Um, but over 57 and a half, that seems very within play here, at least in my mind. These teams scored a bunch the last time they met. That was a thrilling game, honestly, to watch in Arizona. This one's going to be in Seattle. So I kind of like where your head's at.
Well, so this is an interesting over-under number because the game before that was an overtime thriller was a 30-27 game that the Cardinals won in overtime. That adds up to 57. This line's at 57 and a half. They are expecting something very similar. The line is at 3 again. I'm taking Seattle at home because this feels like a must-win scenario for Seattle. They are in a three-way tie for the lead in the NFC West right now, but they already have a loss to the Cardinals. They already have a loss to the Rams, who they're tied with as well. Seattle needs this win for any potential tiebreaker scenarios. They lose this, it is very hard for them to be able to clinch a division in the case of a tie. Not to mention, they're getting potentially Chris Carson and Carlos Hyde back, and maybe even another running back. They're getting their running game back, basically, which is going to help revamp that offense after they suffered a tough loss last week. So Arizona's riding that high of the game-winning catch by DeAndre Hopkins, and with a short week, I'm wondering if there's gonna be a little bit of a hangover.
Yeah, I mean, for the over under thing, I don't think either team can stop anyone. And in terms of who's gonna win the game, I think this is going to be a nail biter. It's gonna come down to the last drive, but from what I've seen of Seattle over the last 3 weeks, I'm a little more concerned. And with what I've seen over Arizona from the last 3 weeks, I'm a little more optimistic. But I do think a lot of that concern, Seattle's been on the road losing. And I think it's weird because I don't really, and I don't know, maybe you feel differently, Higgins, but I haven't really been handicapping like road. Like there haven't been that many fans or things like that. I mean, I guess it comes into
Mm-hmm.
play Denver, Utah in college football, but that hasn't really been my, oh, it's going to be loud, it's going to be tough to play in that environment. But for Seattle, it has been a big problem.
Well, it's interesting that this is Seattle's problem because typically they're the stadium that can be a tough place to go and play, the 12th man. So they're getting a little taste of their own medicine with no fans being there, having a hard time playing on the road. It's a little interesting, I agree. Let's get into the Sunday games though, Brett, because the Pats just had a very nice win over Baltimore, and I think this is exactly where New England all of a sudden comes into the picture again for the AFC East after they started so poorly. They play Houston, who's 2-7 on the year. They're only a 1.5 point underdog because they're on the road. I think England's going to take this win. They're going to go to 5-5, and all of a sudden we're going to hear whispers of Bill Belichick's back with New England and all this different stuff. And who knows? There's still plenty of time left in the season.
There is plenty of time left in the season. I'd never count the Patriots out. I think the Patriots, what they do well, Houston does not stop. So, for instance, Houston, not a great run defense. New England, probably the only thing they do well is run the football. So, that's probably a bad matchup, and that would lead me to believe that New England minus 1.5. It seems like a pretty decent bet there, Higgins.
Yeah, so New England averages 161 yards rushing per game. Houston's defense allows 167 yards of rushing per game.
Yep.
That sounds fitting. I think you're spot on analysis right there.
Yeah, thank you. I try really, really hard.
All right, now another one of the early games that I'm going to be on Saturday is Pittsburgh versus the Jags. Now, the Steelers, they're very telling in how seriously they're taking this game against 1-8 Jaguars team because Mike Tomlin answered very clearly that he doesn't believe in there being a cakewalk game in the NFL. Everyone's professionals. He said this isn't a Big Ten game against a MAC opponent.
I know,
And
and Ben Roethlisberger took some exception to that. He said, "He did you see his quote, Higgins?"
I didn't, but it would be fitting because he went to Miami, Ohio.
Yeah, so he actually said, "I'll talk some smack when I figure out whatever conference William and Mary is in." Which, do
Oh,
you know what conference William and Mary is in?
no, why would I?
The CAA. The
Okay.
CAA.
Okay. Well, so Pittsburgh, they got scared against Dallas already when they had their look over game 2 games ago, and they responded against Cincinnati. I don't expect they're going to look at this game like a step over game again, and so -10, I think they're going to win by double digits, just like they did against the Bengals.
All right. Yeah, I mean, I I guess I don't know. Green Bay came out sleeping against Jacksonville. Jacksonville had a special teams touchdown in that one where Keelan Cole made the punter look absolutely silly on that kick return. But
Well, it is hurricane season down in Florida.
it is.
They don't have anything heading there right now. Iota went down to Nicaragua and made landfall there. There's nothing heading in Florida this weekend, but you never know. It could get rainy. It could get wet. It could get hard to play football.
Yeah, you never know. And it just rains in Florida anyway sometimes. So,
Just for fun.
yeah, just because. So you never know. But I expect Pittsburgh to win that one. And yeah, Mike Tomlin definitely made it clear that he is not taking the Jags lightly. Two teams that no one will be watching, but I will be betting on the Bengals and the Washington football team. The Bengals plus 1.5. That just feels wrong to me. So I'm going to take the Bengals. I think they're the better football team, Higgins.
Yeah, I was looking at that game as well. I like the fact that you get +1 for +100 odds. I mean, it's not bad at all. I mean, you have a chance for a push if it's a one-score game in this interesting matchup. But I think the Bengals honestly could walk away with this win anyways. Joe Burrow against Alex Smith, not very interesting to me, but Joe Burrow continues to try to get better, so maybe they pull out the win.
Yeah, I mean, I think Cincinnati's just better. So that's the fact that they're dogs. I don't know who I'd have Washington dogs to or favored against. Maybe Dallas, they'd be my favorite, but that's the only team I can think of, to be honest with you. So really no one there. And then I'm also going to find myself on this Packers Colts game, Higgins. Green Bay plus 1.5. Green Bay struggled a little bit against Jacksonville, as we just mentioned, but I think they come back refocused against this Indianapolis team. Indianapolis is at home, so I get why they're the favorites. They beat Tennessee last week. They did it pretty handedly. But I just think Green Bay's better, so I'm gonna take the better team getting points. I don't really care that it's on the road.
Yeah, that was another game that I had looked at. That was another game that I'd probably find myself on by Sunday. I just wasn't picking it right now. That's the game that makes sense to me too. I think Green Bay would cover and probably
Honestly,
win that game.
honestly, it's probably a sucker's bet. Like, why is Indianapolis the favorite, right? Well,
Because
they're
they're
going to
at
win
home.
the game, but we'll all sit here and we're going to be like, Green Bay. So I'm going to be a sucker. I'm going to take Green Bay. I just think they're going to come back refocused. I don't think they're happy with how that Jaguars game played out. And I'm really kind of taking this as a bounce back spot against Green Bay. It just so happens that they're dogs. So I really like it.
Well, I really like the Sunday night game because the Chiefs are heading to Vegas to go play the Raiders, and we all know that the Raiders surprised the Chiefs in their first matchup of the year. I think the Chiefs are going to play spoiler again this week. I mean, they're coming off of their bye. They've got their team pretty focused. The Raiders, they've kind of plugged along, but they're struggling a little bit, even though they're at 3 straight wins. They've had some difficulties against the likes of Justin Herbert, where they were able to eke out a win and things of that nature. Just think the Chiefs are going to come out and get this one. And -7.5, you said Green Bay felt like a sucker's bet. I feel like this being just over a touchdown's a bit of a sucker's bet, but I'm taking it anyways.
uh, well, I guess it's tough to say, but Vegas did win outright last time. So I do think the Chiefs are coming in a little extra motivated. We saw some of that driving around the stadium controversy come up this week. Maybe it's not controversy. Gruden kind of downplayed it a little bit, blamed it on the bus driver. Who knows? But yeah, 7.5. That seems within reason, especially with the bad blood that we kind of saw in the media this week, and with the results of that last game.
Yeah, that was interesting. The whole uh, bus driving around the Chiefs and everything like that. I don't really know what to make of that. We'll see how this goes this time around. When they go to Vegas, maybe the bus driver gets lost again for the Chiefs this time.
Maybe he gets a little. Maybe he talks a little smack, and they have to drive around the stadium to cool off.
Well, I think that's all of our picks so far, but we do have our Levy lock and pick of the pod, Brett. Before I get into that, though, let's do a quick update because our Maction finally finished. Like I predicted, my Eastern Michigan lost, so I went 5-1 from last episode. We'll see how it goes this episode on my 8 picks. But your Western Michigan, that was a safe bet. I said it was a lock. It closed on. How about your NBA draft picks, though? Do you know?
My Levy lock, Higgins, is going to be the Bengals +1. I just mentioned it, but I do think they're just flat out better than the Washington football team. I think Joe Burrow is fighting with Justin Herbert for Rookie of the Year. And I think this is a great place for him to have a good game and maybe claim a stake in those Rookie of the Year polls there.
I agree with that pick. I like that pick. Okay, my pick of the pod's going to be the Chiefs -7.5, coming off the bye. The little bit of a bad blood with it being the division game and the way that the Raiders won their first matchup of the season. I could see the Chiefs coming out hot and getting a big win here on the road. And Brett, I see you raising your arms in victory. What does that mean?
Over 2.5. Big 12 players picked in the first round. How about that? 29 and 30 come in the Big 12. Obviously Halliburton. So there you go, Higgins. So I went 1-1 on those last NBA bets.
All right, there you go. I asked you about that. You gave me your pick instead, and then who was going to know that as I gave out my pick, one more from last episode would have clinched for you as the first round of the NBA draft ends. Now, Brett, I do have one last surprise question before we get out of here. It's been quite the eventful episode. Elijah Hughes, the only Syracuse player potentially to get drafted in this year's. Do you see him going in the second round? Where would he fit well, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I do think he'll go in the second round. He'll probably be a bench scoring 3 in the NBA. That's probably a role he'll need to fill. He can come in, he can shoot. I think he can really score at all 3 levels. Opportunities will probably be limited for a second round pick, but you never know how certain teams are going to play the cap this year. Some people might just want to be under the salary cap, under the. I'm drawing a blank on what the term I want to use.
Luxury
is.
tax?
Yes, thank you. Some teams that have been competitive for the last few years want to get under the luxury tax, and maybe second round contracts are a way to do that. Acquire those guys, keep those guys on the roster. So, those are all possible avenues for him to get on the court this year and see some action.
One thing I have learned this year is never underestimate what opportunities or obstacles 2020 might give you. So, Elijah Hughes, you get drafted anywhere, you can make the most of the opportunity, and who knows what we will see with the rosters on December 22nd when the next season tips off. It'll be very interesting to see that late start. But make sure to follow us on social media. We'll have picks going on throughout the week as well at MBB Pod on Twitter, at Next Best Bet on Instagram, and the Next Best Bet Facebook page and YouTube channel where we'll be posting clips of this episode as well. This has been episode 94 of the Next Best Bet. For Brett, I'm Jake. We'll talk to you again after the weekend.